In this video, we're going to be looking at the top 10 audio interfaces of 2020. Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. As I record this video, Black Friday is almost upon us, and some of you will be considering buying new audio interfaces. So I'm going to give you a top 10 for 2020, but with a little bit of a twist. I've been running some polls in various audio production groups to find out which audio interfaces people have been using in 2020. So really, my top 10 is the most popular audio interfaces being used in 2020, and hopefully that will help you to make a decision. Now, of course, I'll be doing this in reverse order, starting off with number 10 and working my way up to the most popular interface. However, before we get into that, I want to have a quick word about some of the specs we'll be talking about. So all of the interfaces we'll be looking at use a bit depth of 24, so we won't be looking at that in the specs. Now, some of them record at a sample rate of up to 192 kilohertz. Now, as a rough guide, I use either 44.1 kilohertz or 48 kilohertz in all of my recordings. If you want to step it up, definitely you could try 96, but I think that's more than enough for today's standards. Now, another thing I'd like to talk about is inputs and outputs, because these can be a little bit misleading, because not all of the inputs and outputs they quote will be physical analog inputs. Some of them come from ADAT, or some of them may even include things like headphone outputs as well. So I'll be differentiating between those two things when I talk about the specs. The other thing I want to talk about in terms of inputs is the fact that a lot of these interfaces do have what I call XLR combos. This means you can plug in either an XLR connection, or you can use a 1/4-inch jack to connect to the audio interface. So that's what I mean by that. Now, let's take a look at number 10.
10.
In at number 10, we have the Scarlett i8 from Focusrite. This is an 18-in, 8-out interface, but the actual analog connections are made up of 8 ins and 4 outs. Note that only 4 of the inputs are XLR combos. It's really nice to see that it has standard MIDI connections and a very useful 2 headphone outputs. The maximum sample rate on this interface is 192 kilohertz, and it connects up to your computer with a USB 2 Type-C connection. Focusrite are known for their preamps, and the 3rd generation all have air mode, which emulates the classic ISA preamps and are great for adding a little bit of high-end sparkle to things like vocals and guitars. Focusrite are also known for great build quality. This is very reasonably priced for the features and a great choice if you need them extra inputs and outputs but don't want to break the bank.
9.
In at number 9, we have the RME Fireface, and the version that we're looking at here is the UCX, which either uses Firewire or USB 2 Type B to connect to your computer. Note that there's also a USB only version, the UC. This is an 18-in, 18-out interface, but the actual analog connections are made up of 8 ins, including 2 XLR combos, and 6 outs, excluding the headphones, of which we have 1 connector on the front. In terms of MIDI, we can connect up using the supplied breakout cables. The maximum sample rate on this interface is 192 kilohertz. RME interfaces are probably more often seen in professional environments than in home studios, as their focus is more towards quality than features. They're also very well known for driver stability, which is important in a pro environment. I actually think that considering this, the price is not too bad at all.
8.
In at number 8, we have the second cheapest interface on the list, the Scarlett Solo from Focusrite. This is a 2-in, 2-out interface with 1 XLR input, 1 1/4-inch input and 2 1/4-inch outputs, plus a headphone out. Note that there are no MIDI connections on this interface. The maximum sample rate on this interface is 192 kilohertz, and it connects to your computer with a USB 2 Type-C connection. Again, this 3rd generation interface has air mode, emulating Focusrite's ISA preamps, giving a nice high-end boost. There are 2 main reasons you'd go for this interface. First of all, if you're on a tight budget but want reasonable quality, and second, if you mostly produce electronic music so you don't have so much need for lots of analog inputs.
7.
In at number 7, we have the Audient ID14. This is a 10-in, 4-out interface, but the actual analog connections are made up of 2 XLR combos and a JFET DI input, where we can emulate classic valve amp tones. Note that using the DI input overrides one of the XLR inputs. We also have 2 quarter-inch outputs plus a headphone output. This interface also has a clever talkback feature, which uses your computer's mic to use as a talkback mic. Please note there are no MIDI connections on this interface. The maximum sample rate on this interface is only 96 kHz, but I still think that that's more than enough. It connects to your computer with the USB 2 Type B connection. Probably the main reason people buy this interface is that Audient's analog digital converters are well regarded, and as well as that, they have great build quality. One thing I've noticed is that amongst the people that bought this interface, their enthusiasm for the purchase is very high. They seem very satisfied indeed.
6.
In at number 6, we have the most expensive interface on our list, the Universal Audio Apollo 8. Here we're looking at the latest incarnation, the X8. This is an 18-in, 24-out interface, but the actual analog connections are made up of 14 ins and 10 outs. 4 of these inputs are XLR. As well as this, we have 2 dedicated headphone outputs. The maximum sample rate on this interface is 192 kHz, and it connects to your computer via Thunderbolt 3. Note that you'll need to buy a Thunderbolt cable, as they don't provide one with the unit, and if you want MIDI connections you'll need to get a MIDI to USB cable, as this has no MIDI connections. This is the first interface we see with onboard effects processing. 4 of the preamps have authentic emulations from giants such as Neve, Manley and SSL. In addition, you can record with near zero latency through UAD plugins including EQs, compressors, reverbs, tape machines and channel strips. So why such a high price tag? Well, with a unit like this, you get the combination of an abundance of features with highly regarded, high quality hardware. It's that simple.
5.
In at number 5, we have the UR22 from Steinberg, and we're looking at the latest incarnation here, the UR22C. This is a 2-in, 2-out interface with the 2 inputs being XLR combos. It also has a headphone output on the front. Once again, it's nice to see that it has standard MIDI connections. The maximum sample rate on this interface is 192 kHz, and it connects to your computer with a USB 3 Type C connection. Incredibly, the UR22C also has latency-free monitoring with some basic DSP effects, including reverb, a channel strip and a guitar amp emulation. This is a great little interface and well loved by my mate Pete Johns, who swears by it for recording with GarageBand on his iPhone.
4.
At number 4, we have the absolute cheapest interface on our list, the Presonus Audio Box. This is a 2-in, 2-out interface, has 2 XLR combos and 2 quarter-inch outputs, as well as a headphone out. It also has standard MIDI connections. The maximum sample rate on this interface is 96 kHz, lower than others, but still more than enough. It connects to your computer with a USB 2 Type B connection. The real selling point of this interface is probably the price, but if you don't need many connections and would find the MIDI connections useful, this is a decent quality interface that will serve you well.
3.
In at number 3, we have the Universal Audio Apollo Twin. We're looking at the Thunderbolt version here, but there's also a USB variant. This is a 10-in, 6-out interface, but the actual analog connections are made up of 3 ins, being 2 XLR combos and a high-Z input, and 4 outputs. Again, as with the Audient ID14, using the high-Z input at the front overrides one of the XLR combo inputs. Again, there are no MIDI connections, and you'll need to buy your own Thunderbolt cable. Also note when shopping, there are Thunderbolt 2 and Thunderbolt 3 versions of this interface available. In addition, there are duo and quad versions available, with the quad version having more processing power. This may be relevant when it comes to using the DSP effects, not so much in terms of speed, but your ability to have more instances of the UAD DSP plugins in action. This interface also has preamp emulations, as we discussed earlier on the Apollo X8. This is not a cheap interface, but a very good choice when you want excellent quality, tons of features, but don't need too many analog inputs.
2.
In at number 2, we have the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20. This is an 18-in 20-out interface, but the actual analog connections are made up of 8 XLR combo ins and 10 outs. It has standard MIDI connections and 2 headphone outputs. The maximum sample rate on this interface is 192 kHz, and it connects to your computer with a USB 2 Type-C connection. We have 3rd generation air mode, which is emulating the classic ISA preamps, and for what it's worth, I think this interface looks really nice. This is a very reasonably priced interface considering the features, and a great choice if you need them extra inputs and outputs but don't want to break the bank. Now, before we move on to number 1, I don't want you to feel bad if your audio interface is not included in this list. There are many great audio interfaces not included here, and I use 2 of them every day. In fact, let's take a quick look at those now. My main interface is the Presonus Studio 192. This is a 26-in 32-out interface, but in fact it has 8 XLR combo inputs and 10 quarter-inch outputs, plus 2 headphone outputs. It has a maximum sample rate of 192 kHz and connects to my computer via a USB 3 Type-B connection. It has a number of onboard latency-free DSP effects, including compression, limiting, gates, EQ, reverb, and delay. These can either be used just for monitoring or can be printed to the recording. I can control every aspect of the interface from my phone or iPad, including preamp gain, so I don't need to get up and down from my playing position to adjust that. In addition, it also has deep integration with Studio One, allowing me to control many aspects of the interface straight from my DAW and effectively being able to recall settings on a song-by-song basis. The quality is great and it's treated me well for the last 2 years. My second interface is the Evo 4. This is a new kid on the block and I really quite like it. It has 2 combo XLR inputs and 2 outputs, as well as a high Z input and headphone jack. It has a very sufficient maximum sample rate of 96 kHz and connects via USB 2 Type-C. It has a rather neat auto gain feature for getting great recording levels every time. Now on this channel, whenever I record videos like this, I use my Presonus Studio 192 as a mixer, and then this is my actual interface. So basically everything you hear comes through this unit. It also has a big brother, the Evo 8, which I'll be reviewing on the channel soon. So we're about to find out what the number 1 most popular audio interface is for 2020. Now, if you found this video useful, could you go ahead and hit the like button for me? Do that right away so that you don't forget. And if you do like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube so that you're notified about my future videos. Don't forget to let me know in the comments down below what your favorite audio interface is. Which one have you been using? Also, which ones have you used which you didn't like? That would be very, very interesting indeed. So let's take a look and see what number 1 is.
1.
In at number 1, we have what is quite possibly the best-selling audio interface in the world. In all the polls I did, this easily dwarfed the competition in terms of popularity. This is a Focusrite Scarlett II. It's a 2-in, 2-out interface featuring 2 XLR combos, 2 quarter-inch outputs, and a headphone out. It has a maximum sample rate of 192 kHz and it connects to your computer via a USB 2 Type-C connection. Apart from that, it has the same features as other Focusrite units in terms of preamps. So why would this be so very popular? Well, I think they've hit a sweet spot in terms of affordability, quality, and basic required features. It's a well-regarded brand, and in an age of singer-songwriters who use virtual instruments and mix in the box on a laptop, in a bedroom, or on the go, this ticks a lot of boxes. So if you're interested in buying any of these audio interfaces, check the links in the description down below. Also, for as little as $1 per month, you can become a patron of this channel and help me help you by making more of these videos. Check the link in the description down below for that, and I'll see you in the next video.